shouldn't be a one-way thing. It should be a dialogue, a two-way conversation that happens between employees and their supervisors. The other piece that I would suggest too is to help managers and all employees build communication skills. And I personally use DISC quite a lot. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator is a good one. Some people use Strengths Indicator or Strengths Finder. But in any case, all of these have to do with helping people understand their style, helping them understand the style of other people, and then helping them do a better job of working together, managing conflict, and those kinds of things. And that in and of itself can have a positive impact on the overall work environment for people. The other piece that we also talked about in engagement of employees has to do with employee development. We don't need to talk about this too much, but it certainly is an area that we want to talk about in our retention interviews. So we know that people want to grow and develop, so we want to check in with that. And so that tells me that we probably want to have a budget for these things. We want to be paying attention to our people, ideally create a culture of continuous learning. Now, some places do development interviews. So we sit down with employees to talk about their growth and development moving forward in their career. The retention interview will really do that for you. They're not one and the same, but there's a developmental component to the retention interview, and you will see that as we go along as well. So I still need to talk a little bit about engagement. And Gallup, who does great work with this stuff, says when a company raises employee engagement levels consistently across every business unit, everything gets better. And we know that. So we need to know about engagement, partly because we know that highly engaged people are 5 times less likely to leave their jobs. Let's talk about this a little bit. There's 2 parts to it. There is a group of things that have the potential to disengage people and dissatisfy people, but interestingly enough, when you do more of it, it doesn't engage them. The best example of that is probably the money piece, compensation. If you aren't being paid at market rates, you have a perception that you're not being paid fairly, we get unhappy about that. We become dissatisfied and disengaged. Guess what? We're probably more likely to leave. But it is interesting, once we pay people at the market rate, more of it, we like it, and you may even convince someone to stay longer, but you will not improve or change their engagement level. Let me give you another example here. Working conditions. I worked in a hospital. We have people working 24 hours a day. So we had employees, mostly women, who would leave at the end of their shift in the middle of the night. It's dark out. Our parking lot was not as bright as it should be. So nurses and others were saying, we want more lights in the parking lot. Okay, we put the lights in. But once you get to a level of where you have enough illumination so people feel more safe, putting in additional lights isn't going to really make any difference. So these are foundational pieces to people's overall satisfaction, but more of it doesn't help with engagement. So then the question is, okay, what are the drivers of engagement? Well, the first ones, these are extrinsic motivators for the most part. The engagement ones are intrinsic motivators, those things that get our juices going. We've already talked about most of these. This ability to grow, to develop, to advance personally and professionally, feel like you're moving somewhere, going somewhere. And if we don't provide that to employees, they sometimes get discouraged, particularly with millennials, where kind of at the beginning of their career, they want that opportunity to grow and develop. We've already talked about autonomy, independence, and control. Recognition, we've talked about that as well. And then personal alignment to feel, and we talked about purpose and values, this idea that the work you do does matter and it is aligned in a way that makes sense and is valuable to you. These are the things that tend to make us happy. These are the things that engage us and drive us. And when those things happen, people are more likely to be satisfied and stay on the job. Okay, Now we're ready to talk about retention interviews. First of all, what they are is a one-to-one interview, in most cases at least. There's some variations. A one-to-one interview between the employee and their supervisor or their manager. And there's two parts to it from my perspective. The first part is just this discussion about how things are going. We want to identify how things are going with the employee to find out if if they're thinking about leaving, and what kinds of factors will impact whether they stay or they will leave. What we're really doing is a situational analysis. We're checking in with the employee to see how life is. What do they like about the job? What don't they like about the job? How is their job different than what you thought it would be? And we are going to ask that question. Has anything happened recently that would cause you to think about leaving? So we'll say, and what is the likelihood that you are going to stay in your job? I think we need to ask those questions. And just asking those questions alone has an impact on the retention of the employee, because this idea of sitting down, paying one-to-one attention with somebody, being a good listener shows that you are concerned, you're interested, and you're compassionate. That is going to increase the level of trust. It's going to increase the level of your relationship between the manager and the employee. That, in and of itself, will have a positive impact on the retention of employees. Employees like to be paid attention to, and we really know that is true with millennials. They may be in the digital age, but they highly value one-on-one face time with their boss. And when those things happen, people become more engaged, more connected, and happier. So just by itself, that's a good thing. Now, the one thing we want to be careful of, though, is that once we have these meetings, we want something to happen out of that. And if it doesn't, then people will get frustrated. So the second part to it is to create a plan of action that is going to make a difference in retaining people. So the first part is not only building relationships and understanding, but it is setting the stage so that we have a plan of action. So we have some idea of what we're going to do. It's going to make sense for the employee and also make sense for the company. With the kind of retention interviews I'm talking about, they tend to be customized, because what is important to me, the reasons that I might stay or leave, would be different than they would be for you. The things that engage me and make me committed and loyal, in a broad sense may be the same, but in a specific sense they're going to be different. And that's what we're kind of digging for, is to get a better handle on who that employee is and where they're at and what they're looking for, and then build an action plan that's going to make sense. Okay, we're going to do another quiz. This time there are right and wrong answers. Now I'm going to switch back to this and I'll tell you about it, how that's going to go here. Okay, here we go. So we have a new game pin. Do it the same way as we did before. So log on with your smartphone. The game pin is 8597268. So again, you're going to see the questions on your computer screen, and you answer them. So this is a quiz. So there are right and wrong answers. And so that does mean that we actually will have a winner. And I'd like to tell you that there are valuable prizes and gifts for our winner, but that's not in our budget. But what you do get is the recognition that you are at the top of the group here. So everybody's joining in. So some of the questions are true and false. I'll talk to you about this a little bit. And some of them are multiple choice. Not altogether fair, because some of these things we haven't quite talked about, but that's just part of the game. Now, how do you get points? Well, one, you have to answer the question right. That would only make sense. The other thing is you will get more points if you answer the questions quickly. So almost always the person who answers very quickly is the one who ends up winning. And so we'll see that. After every question, we'll see who is at the top of the leaderboard. So it only seems fitting that the Winter Olympics is going on, and we can have our own little Olympic going here as well on the Kahoot thing.